Welcome, everybody, into another edition of Warm Weather Fans, the Sunbelt Podcast. I am your host, as always, Brian Stone, joined by Matt Miguez, as I was last week, and returning after having figured out his technical issue, at least temporarily, Zeke Palermo. The podcast that's happy they're not Grayson McCall right now because he absolutely got his ass handed to him on Saturday. So that's the danger of when you go from being a big fish in a small pond to now, guess what? Pond's the same size for all the other big fish, and sometimes you get eaten. Matt, how's it going for you? Other than
I mean, so far so good. There's a hurricane about 150 miles away from my house. So we'll see how that transpires over the next 24 to 36 hours. But so far, so good.
Zeke, how's it going for you?
It's going pretty good. As I was telling you right before we hopped on, I'm going to have to replace my laptop, which is, a frustrating situation because I don't know nearly enough about laptops considering how many options there are. What I said, Matt may have heard this as you jumped in the call. If it runs, it's good enough for me. But I know there's more to it than that. So it's just been frustrating as I try to figure that out.
Yeah. So hopefully you get that all figured out. We're here to talk about Sun Belt football. So I want to go ahead and start. We've got quite a few games to get through, so I just want to jump it right in here. Starting on Saturday, we had no Thursday games this week. Starting on Saturday, as these games are presented in order for me here on ESPN.com, I tweeted this from my own personal account, and I retweeted it from the Warm Weather Fans account. App State stepped on the tracks while there was a freight train on the way. Mm-hmm. And Matt, when you and I were talking about this game last week and we were going in and making our picks and stuff, I said, listen, if Dabo can't get Clemson up for this game after just getting absolutely washed by UGA in week 1, it's just not going to happen. And they've already talked about, hey, maybe this is sort of the end of the line for him. Maybe Clemson needs to look elsewhere for a head coach. At least for 1 week, the doubters and haters, of which there are many, with someone as polarizing as Dabo, they're quiet. Clemson runs App State off the field 66-20. It was 56-13 at halftime. I think Clemson, I saw a stat, I think Clemson had 500 yards of offense in the first half or something along those lines, 500 yards of offense in the first half. I mean, again, it was the worst possible spot for App to be in. They're as good as they are for the conference we talk about. Again, I talked about the big fish, small pond thing. They're a very big fish in the small pond that is the Sun Belt. You step outside of that, sometimes you get the Michigan 2007 game, and sometimes you get run over like a freight train.
Yeah, I mean, I think App just ran into a perfect storm on Saturday night, right? You had a pissed off Clemson team that was obviously in a bad spot after the game against Georgia to open their season. You talked about the people starting to question Dabo, home opener. Like, there were a lot of reasons for Clemson to get up, right? And they absolutely did. And so I don't think that this game was a testament and people go, oh, man, maybe App isn't that good. I don't think people should look at this game that way at all. I think it was just a Clemson desperately needed a statement, and they sent one. And I think App was just the victim, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, this was my thesis about the game last week as well, is that there was no way Clemson wasn't going to come out here and drop really as many points as they wanted. I mean, you remember even last year, didn't Clemson lose the opener to Duke? and then roll. As I look at their schedule now, they rolled Charleston Southern and Florida Atlantic in back-to-back weeks. Back when Clemson lost the opener against Georgia back in like 2021, they went out and rolled, whatever FCS team they played the next week. No matter how fraudulent you think Clemson is within, and this is an idea I'll come back to later, within like the college football playoff conversation, they're not fraudulent within the Power 5, G5 conversation. This was never in doubt. And obviously there are things you can improve here from App. I think 2 interceptions isn't great. I said last week that I wrote to you guys last week that I wanted more volume out of one individual running back, and I didn't get that this week. But I'm not worried. Shoot, this is a Clemson team that within the past couple of years was the best team in the country. So,
Zeke, I love that you brought up the notes that you gave last week, because when we get to specific teams, we're gonna have a conversation.
Y'all thought I listened. I heard what you guys had to say, and I'm ready to go to bat.
Well, okay. Yeah, you're ready to go to bat because the team you backed played really well this week. You absolutely did not have that same energy after they barely edged out Lamar.
No, I think, again, we'll get to it. I think you misinterpreted what I wrote. I did it in 11 words. I kept it condensed. You misinterpreted what I was saying there.
Oh, yeah. Now he tries to wiggle around. But anyways, let's move on.
I'm not letting him off the hook. But yeah. So here's the issue, and it was wrong place, wrong time for App. Again, sometimes you are on the right side of a 2007. Hey, we beat Michigan on the road, ranked, like the whole 9 yards. Everybody still talks about that game. Sometimes you're on the right side of those games, and sometimes you face a pissed off team with a motivated head coach, and you are simply overmatched from a talent perspective. And I mean, I'm not saying App is a bad team because they lost this game. I'm more saying Clemson had every reason to take all of their frustration out on an App State team that we all like, but was, for better or for worse, was just overmatched by Clemson. I mean, it happens. So, yeah, I mean, you go through and look, and it's like Joey Aguilar was very non-Joey Aguilar-like, was not really efficient, 18 of 41, 214, 1 touchdown. You got the full Billy Wiles experience with 1 throw, 0 for 1, 1 interception. I mean, could there be a better encapsulation of what his college, quarterbacking career has been like than that? And then you've got, Cade Klubnik on the opposite side was almost perfect. 24 of 26, 378 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 picks. I mean, Clemson just did absolutely whatever they wanted to do and took advantage. And I know we're not an ACC podcast, but I'm going to go ahead and put this out there now. I don't think Clemson is like a fraud. I just think that Georgia is one of the 2 best teams in the country, probably next to Texas. And guess what? It's tough when you are in the 17 to 25 range, which is realistically where Clemson sits, and you have to play the number 1 team in the country or the number 2 team, depending on how you feel about Texas that week. So, again, it was just wrong place, wrong time for App. Like, they just had all the frustration taken out upon them. Do we have anything else on this game, or should we go ahead and move on? So like I said, not a lot to take away. I don't think App should, hang their head or get, frustrated by this. I mean, games like this happen all the time. Like, a couple of them happen for Sunbelt teams this week. Personally, Georgia Southern in 2 weeks plays Ole Miss. I expect a very similar score. So, I mean, I don't think there's a lot to be upset about. With the win, Clemson's 1-1 this season now. App is now drops to 1-1 with the loss. Getting into this next game here, Memphis defeats Troy 38-17 in a game that wasn't even as close as the final score indicated. I watched the majority of the first half, and I kind of just cut it off because I had other stuff to do. Because frankly, Troy wasn't putting up much of a fight. And I have a tweet from the Warm Weather Fans account that Gerard Parker kicked a field goal down 24 in like the early fourth quarter. I mean, you might as well just go ahead and wave the white flag right there. Like I hate that. Like that is the most coward's way to coach of like we cut a 3-score lead to a 3-score lead with a field goal here. And it came on like a 4th and 1. So it wasn't even like a, oh man, we have to do it like it's 4th and 18. I mean, they could have just went for it.
It wasn't 4th and 1, it was 4th and goal from the 4.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I was about to say he kicked a 22-yarder with 29 seconds left in the third quarter.
Which is even worse.
What are we doing? Like, what is that?
I was far too complimentary of Troy the past several. I believed in the infrastructure. I thought the bones of this team were still there from the John Summerall, but that's just simply not the case. I was astounded by how well Memphis ran the ball. Something stupid like 5 yards a carry, when in their first game they were looking at like 2 yards a carry. This is not a Memphis team that is known for running the ball well.
I was about to say Seth Hennigan's thrown over 3,000 yards every year he's been there.
So this is not a Memphis team that is known to stuff the ball down your throat. But Troy has just flipped in terms of its identity from a team that you're not going to run against to shoot. I mean, if I've got a 5th grader who's particularly quick, I might be able to get a couple first downs with him against Troy.
I mean, you're right. And like, it's funny, but it's also it's sad because it's true.
It's kind of true.
So I checked in on this game. I believe, I want to get the stat right. I believe Troy had 16 yards of offense in the first quarter. And I think at half they had like 84 total yards of offense. Like, again, this game was not as close as it read, like 21 points. It could have easily been 35-3.
Mm-hmm.
Goose Crowder in this one, not good. Dude, I watched him. He was missing throws left and right. I mean, the pass rush for Memphis was getting to him like on a regular basis. He just, I don't know if he's ready for this level of football, to be totally honest with you. Like, I'm not even trying to be mean about that. Like, what's his name? Caldwell, who came in relief, looked like he had a better grasp and more command of the offense than Goose Crowder did. So I mean, the team had 250 yards of offense. I guarantee you that was in the last quarter because it was just pure garbage time. Like, Memphis was just doing whatever they wanted. If Goose Crowder doesn't score, he led the team to a long 13-play, 75-yard drive in the second quarter. And then outside of that, they did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, Zeke, I agree. Like, I think we gave them a little bit too much of the benefit of the doubt almost.
Mm-hmm.
Matt,
I think, I mean, that's a trend that I had across several teams. But yeah, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys kind of touched on it. Troy looks worse than we thought they did. Their inability to play defense, which has been kind of their cornerstone under John Summerall. Now, granted, it hurts when you don't have a Carlton Marshall or Javon Solomon or Richard Jubinor. Like, I get the loss of those guys, right? But I mean, you have nobody to play defense. And so that's really concerning for Troy. Obviously, Jared Parker has never been a head coach before. There's going to be, an adjustment curve. I get all that. But yeah, I think we might have given Troy a little too much credit in the preseason.
Yeah, from what I watched, it just seems like this is like taking a house down to the studs or like to the absolute foundation and just starting over. It just seems like there's nothing here from previous Troy seasons that you can grasp onto and say, hey, that guy or those group of guys are the part of the team that helped lead them to back-to-back Sun Belt titles. Like this,
Correct.
they just look totally unrecognizable in the way that they played, especially the last 2 weeks. So it's gonna be a long season. I mean, I know Phil Steele said that they would take a step back. I don't even know if he anticipated this much of a step back when he said that. So, buckle up, Trojan fans. Like you guys have had it really good the last 2 years. Now you're going to see the total flip side of that. And I know that they saw it when Chip Lindsey was there, but it kind of seems like we're back to like Chip Lindsey land, at least for 2024.
Yep.
Anderson, the running back for Memphis, 17 carries, 125 yards, 2 scores. That would not have happened against a John Summerall coach team. Yeah, man. I said at the beginning of the season, I said, you guys have gotten used to allowing 14 points a game or whatever crazy number it was. That stuff's out the window. Like it's a whole new ball game for you guys. So we'll see if they get it worked out throughout the year. But right now it's like the quarterback position seems shaky with Caldwell and Crowder and whoever else takes snaps for them. The defense isn't good. The offensive line is kind of collapsing pretty quickly. So I mean, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But Memphis with the win is now 2-0. Troy is now 0-2. Zeke, I'm going to give you the floor for this one because you showed up for the episode to talk about UTSA getting stomped by Texas State. I do want to say one thing really quick before I kind of turn you loose.
Mm-hmm.
Owen McCown played like his dad and uncle did in the NFL on Saturday. Just let that process because they were not good at the pro level, and that was exactly how he played.
This was never a doubt. I think we misinterpreted as I listened to the episode from last week that I missed. My 11 words or less, and I have it pulled up here. Let me read it. I said, it got hairy, semicolon, either never again or Southern-esque softness. Meaning in that tight Texas State Lamar game, all of Lamar's points came in the second half. Indicative either of it just kind of got away from them when the second squad was in, or, as Brian, you've talked about ad nauseum, Texas State lacks guts. Texas State does not lack guts. Defensively. There was a concern of that last season after they really slipped in the second half of the season. They show up for what I think is probably not their most difficult opponent of the season, but what may, as we look back, be their hardest game when you just consider like UTSA, Texas State rivalry, in addition to the fact that UTSA is a good team. You kind of mesh those together, save for what I expect them to be in the conference championship and then the college football playoffs. This will be their most difficult regular season game. They showed up. And they did not exhibit that Southern-esque softness. They got that out against Lamar. And it was just one of those, shoot, man, game one, we played an FCS team that caught us a little flat-footed in the back half. Speaking of the game against Lamar. Come out, absolutely rolled UTSA. Again, you talk about, well, not defensively. Yeah, they only put up 14 in the second half, but that's because they led 35-3 at halftime. You didn't need to put up another 35. 14 did the trick. They only allowed 7 second half points this time. This was never a doubt. I thought it was definitely this was a game that I thought the line of UTSA as favorites was absurd because Texas State was at home. Texas State will go undefeated in the regular season. And and again, this is just confirming my preconceived notion, so I have nothing really to add because it's just confirming what I've already said or what I already I believe. They showed up and they absolutely rolled.
So let me make sure that I have this straight.
Mm-hmm.
A team that nearly lost to a Southland school.
Mm-hmm.
Some would argue, if they watched the game, that they maybe should have lost. But I digress. Plays a UTSA team that is replacing their quarterback, replacing their running back, and replacing half of their defense. And because and a team that struggled to beat an FCS call-up.
Mm-hmm. Can I read you something? Highest chance to make the college football playoff among G5 teams. This was over the offseason, according to ESPN FPI. Boise State, 16.4%. Number 2, UTSA, 15.6%.
I'm not worried
hold on.
about the FPI.
Can I break in for 1 second?
Yeah.
Zeke, I hate to burst your bubble, bro. After watching Boise through the first 2 games, I think they're getting in. I think they could go 11-1 with their one loss being to Oregon. I think they're sneaking in ahead of Texas State.
And who said that in the preseason?
Hey, let's see, man. I'm just saying, if you're trying to discredit the win to UTSA here, saying I'm not.
I'm not
talking to you.
Oh, okay. I promised. Like I was very impressed by the way that they went out and handled business in this game.
Did they play well? There's no question about that.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. But let's not act like them drubbing UTSA by 40 at home means, oh man, they're going undefeated. They're going to the playoff.
I said in my very brief notes that I think if they win this game, going undefeated regular season is more likely than not. Point to a schedule App maybe. We still haven't really seen App yet, so we don't know. Point to a game on that schedule.
Zeke, buddy, I love you. They're home underdogs to Arizona State this weekend.
Let's see. They were home underdogs to UTSA. Let's see it.
I'm fine letting it all play out. I'll just say this. I do think, and I have nothing to back this up but feel and vibes. Mm-hmm. If Texas State was to play Boise State on a neutral field, I think Boise State would be a touchdown favorite.
Oh, I would agree with that.
And look at it this way too. Say they lose this weekend, hypothetical. Say they lose this weekend to Arizona State at home. Say it's by a field goal.
Sure.
And they finish 11-1 and win the Sun Belt. Do you think? And I have said that I don't have a lot of faith in the playoff committee. They're dumb when it comes to anything other than who won the SEC, who won the Big Ten. Like that's all they care about.
Mm-hmm.
If Texas State goes into the postseason 11-1 with their one loss being to Arizona State at home by a field goal, and Boise State is also 11-1 Mountain West Conference champions, and their loss is to Oregon by what was it? A touchdown?
4.
4?
Not even 3, rather.
But bro, Boise's getting in so fast.
Yeah,
Boise's getting in so fast your head's gonna spin.
If that's the case. But if Texas State wins out, which we'll jump the gun, I think they beat Arizona State. I can't fashion a reason.
I still think the playoff committee would take the 11-1 Boise State team.
We'll see.
I don't know. I truly would need to see it all play out that way. I know we've been doing a lot of like forecasting and stuff like that, but I'm not going to discount how stupid the playoff committee people are. They all look like they are 1,000 years old. I don't know if you guys saw that picture of them watching the games at the end of the season last year. I tweeted this. I said, everybody in that room saw the 1969 moon landing on TV. That's how old they are. Like, so I'm telling you, all of these people are old as hell, and all they care about is looking at the W's and L's, and for any team that isn't in the SEC or the Big Ten, they could not care less. They don't care who wins the Big 12. They don't care who wins the American. All of this is irrelevant. All they care about is, do my sweet baby Texas get in? Do my sweet baby Georgia get in? And I say sweet baby mockingly, obviously. Like, I don't actually feel that way. But I can't underestimate how stupid those people are. And, like, the fact that they kept Florida State out last year, undefeated, Power 4, Power 5 conference champ, like, I won't put anything past them. Back to the game, though. I mean, Texas State absolutely dominated every facet of the game. Like, I'm not arguing that at all. Like, again, I made the joke. McCown played like Josh and Luke in the NFL, like, with his performance on Saturday. It was ugly. Hey, Zeke, I'll say this. If their defense keeps up this level of play, dude, yeah, I totally see the path. That my issue is, are you going to have one of those games like you did last week against Lamar against a better team that does have the ability to come back? Is your defense going to just kind of lackadaisically going to go through the motions if you get a 3-touchdown lead in the second quarter? Is it all of a sudden going to be time to kind of mail it in, and then whoever comes slowly creeping back, and then guess what? We're tied with 2 minutes to go in the fourth or something like that. So it does help. I do still believe they have the best quarterback in the conference, and I think that that's going to be a huge edge for them. But yeah, man, I mean, this was super impressive. Again, if their defense keeps up this level of play, I've never had questions about the offense. If their defense is holding teams to 2 scores, and they look like prime Troy on defense every week, yeah, dude, yeah, they're for real. So, yeah, with that, Texas State is now 2-0 this season. UTSA drops to 1-1. Getting to another just absolutely ugly offensive performance here. Marshall loses 31-14 in Blacksburg against Virginia Tech. I picked Virginia Tech, and they should have covered, and it was just, I mean, it was like there was a possession where Virginia Tech had the ball late and could have scored, and they just absolutely ground the clock down, and I was like, oh man, that's a killer. But yeah, all of Marshall's quarterbacks played like absolute garbage, and I mean, I'm sorry, like the combo of Stone Earl and Pennington and even Braylon Braxton to some extent, like, I don't know why Braylon Braxton hasn't kind of been gift wrapped the job. Don't really understand it. He's looked like the best of the 3, but they keep running all 3 of them out there. I don't know. Like, I don't know what to make of this team. Do either of you guys have a thought on Marshall?
The inability to find a quarterback is going to cost Charles Huff his job. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. He's gone because the dude just can't find a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I agree. That seems to be the key part of their problem, is that they don't have any consistency from a leadership standpoint on offense. And they don't have any dudes on defense anymore. All their dudes defensively are gone. There's no more Owen Porter. There's no more Micah Abraham. Those guys are gone. And you haven't done a good enough job recruiting to kind of just recycle those guys. So yeah, no, I agree. I think Charles Huff is going to be looking for a new job at the end of the season.
So the craziest thing to me was that Stone Earl was the only quarterback to take snaps for Marshall in this game. Can you imagine completing like 30% of your passes and being able to play a full 4-quarter game with the head coach never looking to the bench and saying, hey, maybe we get one of those other guys in there? Like, Matt, you and I talked about it last week. Braylon Braxton should have the job. There's
I agree.
literally there's no reason to run Cole Pennington or Stone Earl out there any longer. It should just be the Braylon Braxton show and just see what you have, because you know from last year's team what you have in Cole Pennington, and it's not good. And you've seen through 2 games what you have in Stone Earl. And even though Marshall won last week, Stone Earl didn't play overly well.
Correct.
So, like, why are we still running this guy out there? Now, I will say the only really 2 impressive players on this team at this point are AJ Turner, the running back, who they seem to have, they found an adequate Rasheen Ali replacement. 6 carries, 103. I know, Zeke, I know you love to play the what if he took his longest runaway game, but if you took his longest runaway, he averaged 8 yards a carry.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's impressive. And then Christian Fitzpatrick, if you had a quarterback that was worth his salt that could get him the ball, I think he would be good. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's a non-functional offense as it stands today because no team is scared of them throwing the football.
Mm-hmm.
So
something to good take. I will say, Matt, you talked about how they lack guys defensively, and they still do. That this isn't to speak to their star power, but that defense was in the backfield for Virginia Tech a lot.
Yeah.
4 sacks against a team that only attempted 21 passes, 9 tackles for loss. That's a step that they've not lost. They obviously lost the individual talent, but Marshall has sustained a strong front 7 in that regard, which, shoot, like 31 points against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech isn't good by any means, but that ain't bad. 31 against Virginia Tech, that's passable.
Yeah. Charles Huff, buddy, you and Will Hall might want to go in on a U-Haul together, maybe split the cost of moving. I don't know how that would work logistically, considering one of you lives in West Virginia and the other one lives in Mississippi, but it's inevitable almost at this point. So
real quick, and this is jokingly, you know how people used to say coaches would go to Alabama to resurrect their career?
Yeah.
Now that Nick Saban's gone, where are they going to go? Like who's going to be the
UGA?
new
coach? That's already happening at Georgia.
Yeah. Kirby's going to be the resurrector now.
Yeah.
Well, I know I'm sorry to always relate this back to Georgia Southern, but I have the most firsthand accounts. Tyson Summers, the second he got fired at Southern, ran and became an analyst at UGA immediately. So it's sort of already happening where these failed head coaches are like, hey, I could go to UGA, watch film, and hand notes to Kirby Smart, and this other team has to pay the rest of my contract out, and I get to make another 150 grand or whatever on top of it.
Yeah.
So,
that's
yeah.
Fair.
All right. So with that, Marshall drops to 1-1. Virginia Tech improves to 1-1. Yeah. This next game here, I have nothing positive for James Madison to take away. You're down 3-0 to Gardner Webb at half.
Yeah,
you score a grand total of 13 points and you win by a touchdown at home.
Yeah, I didn't even watch this game. I'm strictly going off the box score. I hope to God that their practice following this game was conditioning only, because that was horrible. Horrible. How are you a 10-win team a year ago? And look, I understand you lost your coach, you lost your quarterback. There was a lot of turnover at James Madison. I get it. But the talk behind this program coming into 2024 was, Bob Chesney's a really good coach. He's got some key pieces back from last year's roster. They're going to keep rolling. They might take a small step back, but nothing crazy.
The schedule is cake.
The schedule is cake. We raved about how easy their schedule is. You beat Gardner Webb by a touchdown.
Brutal.
Yikes.
I think the most frustrating part about this for me is kind of unrelated to the game itself. I understand there's 134 teams to keep track of, and especially at this G5 level where there are not as many eyes as the Big Ten, the SEC, even the Big 12, right? James Madison, and I'm going to be speaking in broad strokes because I don't have an example in front of me. You'll see James Madison ranking the top G5 programs most likely to make the CFP. And James Madison is still up there because they're 2-0. James Madison is far worse than the team they were last season. We've seen that through 2 games. Even against Charlotte. I mean, they beat Charlotte 30-7. I didn't think they were particularly impressive against them. But I'm speaking very hand-wavy, which weakens what I'm saying here. But you hop on Twitter and you look at ranking the top 20 G5 programs from College Football Updates Daily, or some whatever Twitter account. James Madison is going to be right there in the thick of it with Boise, with App, who again Texas State, which is a conversation they frankly don't belong in.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Alonzo Barnett turned back into Mr. Hyde last week. He was Dr. Jekyll, and played fairly well. I mean, against Charlotte, and we had no idea what to expect from either James Madison or Charlotte. But in this one, 14 of 22, 135 yards. His leading receiver, 32 yards receiving. Leading receiver, led the team. George Pettaway was a very solid running back. Was also the leading receiver who I just mentioned. 10 carries, 84 yards. Tyler Purdy came in, scored a touchdown, the lone touchdown, 10 carries, 58 yards. But yeah, if you're getting this level of production against no offense, an FCS team in Gardner-Webb, that cake schedule is going to go out the window very quickly because they're going to play a Sunbelt school who we previously thought, and I'll go ahead and name drop them. I don't know if they actually play them because I don't have James Madison's schedule up. But if you have to play like a ULM, who might surprise some teams this year by the way that they play and how physical they are, it's gonna look a lot different than it would have last year.
They play ULM in 3 weeks.
Okay, so take what you saw Saturday from James Madison, and then on the flip side, take what you saw Saturday from ULM, and tell me that that's going to be the cakewalk win that everybody thought it would be or projected heading into the season.
It would be a loss for James Madison.
Yeah. They desperately need to find out finally and once and for all if they believe that Alonzo Barnett is the guy. Because they tried it last year and he got benched for underperforming and then McLeod came in. But this whole I'm okay at football 1 week and the next week I can't throw all of a sudden, it's not going to cut it. All right. So James Madison, even though they underperformed, are now 2-0. Gardner-Webb drops to 0-2. Getting into this next one here, East Carolina edges out Old Dominion. I say edges out. This was a strange game. East Carolina's quarterback threw 4 interceptions. 25 of 38 for 283. No touchdowns. However, their running back, Harris, for East Carolina, 26 carries, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns. Basically anchored the entire offense for the Pirates.
Yeah, but so I'm going to go ahead and play Zeke's game here. You take away his 63-yard touchdown run, 25 carries for 68 yards. That's okay. It's okay. It's not great.
Well, let me put this into context. I know Zeke loves that game, and I'm not the biggest fan of it, and never really have been. But his rushing production made up basically half of Old Dominion's total yard.
No doubt. My point, what I was going to bring up when it was my turn to speak about this game was how bad do you have to be offensively for your defense to have 4 interceptions and you still lose? Like, come on. And I'm saying that as somebody that covers the Cajuns. Do we not remember the Cajuns back in December against Jacksonville State scoring 3 touchdowns on defense and still losing the game?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't get 4 picks and lose. You just can't.
No.
You just can't. So that's my spiel.
This comes back to my thesis about Old Dominion that it's that I had going into the season and held last year as well. Is this offense lacks playmakers, and they just kind of pick points out of thin air. And in this game, they didn't even really pick those points out of thin air. Of the 4 interceptions they forced, they only scored on one of those one touchdown on those 4 interceptions. They one of those touchdowns they scored didn't come off of the pick. This offense needs a playmaker. And again, like, college football is funky because you can't just add a guy in the middle of the season. You're kind of set, and if you're screwed, you're screwed. If you're not, you're not. Until Old Dominion finds, 1, a real quarterback, but 2, offensive player that can electrify this offense, they're going to continue to struggle in games like this, where your defense plays well, more than well enough to win the game, and you provide them no form of support because of this program's either inability or refusal to find anyone with a 40 time that's under 4.5.
Yikes.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. I just thought it's just funny to throw it out there and be like, Zeke's like, I want to see these 40 times. Let me see them.
I'm going to look through them right now. Give me a few. I'll look through these 40 times.
Zeke is such a scout. It's hilarious.
Well, the other thing, too, is, like, even when you take a look at the scoring that Old Dominion did do, one of them was a 1-play, 1-throw drive from Grant Wilson to Kelby Williams. And, 1-play drives can be flukes, and there's no... It's one thing when it's like, hey, this is a sustained 12, 13, 15-play drive where we were just pounding the ball or, doing whatever. This is like... they were lucky to get 2 touchdowns on the board in this game. This could have been way uglier. Yeah, I mean, but hasn't this always been sort of our issue with Old Dominion? Like, as long as we've been talking about Sunbelt football, is like they just don't have pieces on the offensive side of the ball outside of, when they had Ollie Jennings III, like, what was it, 2 years ago, was their only receiver who could catch passes. Blake Watson was a running back that was good for like a short stretch and then kind of fell off the face of the earth. So it's just like, even when guys play well, it's not sustained. You can't rely on any of that from a week-to-week basis. So, like, how do you build off of any of this?
We talked about when we previewed Old Dominion, though, that honestly, like, the bar is so low for a school like Old Dominion without football success that I don't want to say who cares. Obviously, like, we care, but who cares? Old Dominion appears to be content being a sub 500 team as long as they pick up their 3, 4, 5 wins over the course of the season. Now, as I look at their schedule, I don't see any of those wins coming at this point after the game against East Carolina. But, like, does Old Dominion care that much? What is the state of that program?
I mean, we talked about it. We were like, what does success look like at Old Dominion? Their peak over the last, I don't know how many years it was 6-6. Like, they were just happy to back their way into a bowl game and lose. But be in a bowl game nonetheless. They haven't really done much of anything. And so, like you said, if people don't care and, they don't have like a fan base that's invested in like willing to get Ricky Ronnie out of there and try something else, then yeah, they're just going to keep letting him run it back because, who's going to say otherwise? So, yeah, that's a tough situation in Norfolk. So East Carolina with the win moves to 2-0 this season. Old Dominion is now 0-2. Getting into this next game here, Ohio defeats South Alabama. South Alabama's tough season continues. Gio Lopez was a scratch very shortly before this game due to turf toe. So the royally named Bishop Davenport started at quarterback, 226 a touchdown. He was fine. Devin Voisin was their leading receiver, 5 catches, 77 yards. Not being able to beat a MAC school is tough. The MAC is like top to bottom, typically one of the worst conferences in the country. As evidenced, it was Akron, I believe, lost to an FCS school on Saturday. So, like, that's the level of... no, sorry, it was Kent State. I'm sorry about that. Sorry, Akron fans, if anybody's listening. Kent State lost to a team called St. Francis, Pennsylvania on Saturday.
The only MAC school that anybody gives a damn about at this current moment is the Northern Illinois Huskies. How about them boys?
Go Red.
Going into South Bend and answering the prayers of college football fans everywhere. And look, I have no hatred against Notre Dame. I don't. I'm not one of those people that just can't stand Notre Dame. I'm honestly indifferent towards the Irish. Like, cool program, great history, whatever, right? But nobody wanted to see them make the college football playoff.
No.
Nobody wanted to see that.
But they're still in the mix, technically. I mean, if they win out...
Are they, though?
Yeah. You underestimate the brand of Notre Dame.
I was going to say, I don't know how the committee has ruled on Notre Dame in the past, but Notre Dame is a team that the committee certainly likes.
The committee has always given them the benefit of the doubt.
But how do you lose to a MAC school and still get in? Like, that's my thing.
By not playing a conference schedule?
Right. Yeah. So so here's the thing though. Let's say they go out and they beat like USC, because that's a big rivalry game every year. If they beat USC and that's their best win, and let's say USC is a 10-win, 9-win football team, the committee is going to give them the benefit of the doubt because of the brand. They're going to go, "Oh, Notre Dame's back. That loss to the MAC school was just a blip." And then all of a sudden, guess what?
Well, then we need Louisville or Georgia Tech or somebody to beat them again, because nobody wants to see Notre Dame. I'm sorry. Just nobody wants to see it.
No. Getting back to this game, though, Ohio, the last 2 seasons, has now defeated 2 Sunbelt schools. I don't know whether the green in their jerseys is like kryptonite for football, but they beat Georgia Southern in the bowl game with like a 3rd-string squad after everybody had transferred out, and now they've beaten South Alabama, who we didn't anticipate to be that good, but I mean they're beating Sunbelt teams nonetheless. So,
well, who beat South Al last week was the Mean Green.
Mm-hmm.
So that must be it.
Yeah, Major Applewhite's just allergic to green.
Does South Alabama play Marshall this year?
I'm looking right now. I don't see Marshall on the schedule. No,
they're done with green the year.
They're done with green.
They can thank their lucky stars, because that would have been a loss as well.
They do go to LSU though.
Well, they're not going to win that game. It doesn't matter. LSU could wear tie-dye uniforms. It wouldn't matter. All right. So with that, South Alabama is in a rough spot. Man, think about where this team was 2 years ago. when they had won 10 games. They were within one score of beating Troy, and very well could have been the representative for the West in the Sun Belt title game. And just think about the fall from grace from that point to now. It's just kind of insane to think about. But South Alabama is now 0-2 with the loss. Ohio moves to 1-1. Getting into this next one here, I don't know that we have a lot to take away from this, but Coastal Carolina beat William and Mary 40-21. Great job, guys.
Cool. You did exactly what you were supposed to do.
Yeah. Sorry.
Like that. Good job.
Yeah.
Can we reopen the Ethan Vasco conversation? Because
was it ever closed, really?
Well, I was not impressed by his performance.
The conversation that he's overrated?
I mean, I thought he played well against Jacksonville State.
Think about the opponent, Cat.
All right.
I mean,
he played. He played really, really bad here.
Yes, he played really well against Jacksonville State. I don't want to discredit that because he did, but also think about how much Jacksonville State lost on defense from last year to this year, and now this performance against William and Mary kind of proves my point.
Sure.
I mean, he looked awful.
And then on top of everything, too, we talked about it last week, Matt, but Jacksonville State probably has one of the worst quarterback situations from top to bottom in the country. All three of those guys that took snaps were absolute garbage last Thursday or 2 Thursdays ago. But yeah, I mean, they went up. Coastal went up 27-7 at halftime, and then pretty much just, put their foot on the brake from there, and was just like, hey, we're just going to run the clock out. But good win for them. But yeah, Ethan Vasco, maybe spend some more time throwing to your receivers after practice, because 8 of 23 ain't going to cut it. I thought that last week was sort of a performance that he could build on, and this is just like a Jenga tower just being knocked over by like a young child. Like this is we're back to ground zero with the Ethan Vasco thing. But with that, Coastal is now 2-0. William and Mary is now 1-1. Zeke, Georgia State beats Chattanooga 24-21 in what we had kind of said penciled in as one of their few, kind of scheduled wins of the season. Was there anything that you could take away from this game that you think would be positive, and what was most concerning considering, it was a 3-point deficit?
So I think the positive takeaway is that when Georgia State could really put together a good drive, they did look really good. I thought Christian, and I've got it, it's Vire. Matt, I thought you would have picked up on this. It's a French name. You're down in Louisiana. Thought it could have been something.
Vire?
Vire or Vire? It's Vire.
I thought it was Valou.
There's no L sound in there at all.
Well, that's EUX.
They've got it on the team on his roster site as VAY-ER, Vire or Vayer, one of the two. Anyway, I thought he performed well on drives that the team was moving the ball well. I think Freddie Brock, like when he's hitting, can really run the ball well. And defensively, I thought they were solid enough. There was no like real guy that torched him. Sam Phillips had an 84-yard touchdown. But aside from that, I thought the defense played pretty solidly. The downside, the negatives of this game is obviously beating FCS school by only 3. And it's because on the drives that, it was like for every good drive Georgia State put together, it was a 3 and out to follow it. They couldn't string 2 good drives together. They couldn't string, let alone 2 plays together. So I wasn't on last week. My one sentence on this game was Georgia State will win, but Chattanooga could be feisty. And that's exactly what happened. Georgia State, I think, is worse than a lot of people think, and that's to say a lot of people are already pretty low on Georgia State. I'm still net positive on this team over the next 5 years, but right now they're in a really, really tight spot. And
I know
it just go ahead.
I know you said Sam Phillips had that one long catch, but I did the math, and if you take that off the board, so basically he was 7 for 110 other than that catch. I mean, the guy almost had 200 yards receiving. So do you think one long catch aside, do you think that their secondary could be a real problem, especially when you get into conference play and some of these teams really want to air it out? Do you think that could be? I mean, we don't anticipate them being a good team, so I'm not, to say that that's going to be their Achilles heel is sort of overstating it. But do you think that could be something that's a real issue for them down the road, is their inability to cover receivers?
It certainly could be. I'm going to tell you it's not my greatest concern with that defense. I think there are enough guys on that roster, Gavin Pringle being the real number one corner in that defense, that I really, really like. Isaiah Guy is a safety that's exceptional. Jaron Gilmore is also exceptional. Kenyatta Watson has played well this year. So I hear what you're saying, but they only allowed 13 completions, right? So the yardage was great, but it's not like they were getting diced up all day. My real issue with this defense, and again, this game will not show it as you look at the stats, is the second level, the linebacking core. I think they're a little flimsy in that area. Their best linebackers are kind of more run stopper, like 3-4 end type guys, rather than they had a guy, Jordan Vezial, the past several years, who, I mean, that guy would just wrap up anyone within 10 yards of him. And I feel like that's what this team lacks right now defensively, is just a real strong, like, traditional Mike. Look, this game didn't change much on my thoughts for this team. Like, this is a bad team that's in a position where it's just get everyone accustomed to Del McGee, let him get his own guys in. When I first joined the podcast and we talked, I think it was about Sean Clark at App, you guys just kept telling me, like, just wait until he gets his guys. Wait until he gets his guys. And that's how I feel about Del McGee at Georgia State, is wait until he gets his guys, and then we can judge, because I think his guys are going to be far and away better than any recruits Georgia State has had in the past.
He's a dynamite recruiter.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely dynamite.
That's the reason Southern wanted him a couple years ago when they made the transition. This is not Del McGee's final stop. He's going to move P5 once he gets this program moving. But right now is a wash. Take the win when you can.
All right, so let's move off of this game because we got a lot to get through, and we're already kind of going long. Georgia State is 1-1 with the win. Chattanooga is now 0-2. Matt, give me your thoughts. Louisiana absolutely took Kennesaw to the woodshed, and you were worried about this game going into it. And I told you Kennesaw is just, they haven't got their feet underneath them as a FBS program yet. I mean, it's the transition's different for every team, but they truly seem like they are starting back from scratch. So kind of tell me what you thought about the way that
I was nervous because it just had the makings of a trap game. Kennesaw State's first FBS home game. Obviously their crowd was going to be into it. They were going to be loud. They put up a good fight against UTSA. Like there was a lot of pieces that felt like maybe Kennesaw State could build off of it. And for the first quarter, it looked that way. They were able to move the ball on the Cajuns' defense. They were able to get into the end zone. They were able to make things happen. But then, I don't know, the second quarter, it just looked like a flip switch for the Cajuns. The defense was flying all over the place. Zylan Perry and Bill Davis were able to run the football like crazy. Ben Wooldridge was efficient yet again. His numbers this week don't jump off the page at you, but that's because they were able to find something in the running game. Really big performance for the Cajuns, dominant win, and now you're 2-0, sitting on a bye week, which with this storm rolling in, bye week couldn't have come at a better time. But yeah, no, big win for Michael Desramo and company, and now they get to enjoy it for a little while.
So Louisiana with that is now 2-0 this season. Kennesaw State drops to 0-2. Getting into this next one, Georgia Southern edges out Nevada, and when I say edges out, I absolutely mean it with every step of, every fiber of my being. So I'm going to say this, Nevada shot themselves in the foot and took any ability to win this game off the table by insisting to throw the ball as much as they did. If they ran read option every single play, they would have won this game going away. They, for some reason, so Georgia Southern's defense started playing better after the midway mark of the second quarter. They finally started to kind of stop the run. They seem like they, began to care stopping the run, something that they did not do against Boise last week. And, I know Boise's good, but guys don't run for 300 yards unless something's really wrong on the defensive side of the ball. Now, Zeke, one of the things, since Matt stepped away to go grab a cup of water, but one thing I want to tell you about this game is it came very close to Nevada winning it on the final snap. Nevada threw a Hail Mary on the last play that one of their receivers caught. I think it was Braham, the guy that led them in receiving, down at the 5-yard line. He caught it. And this ball was thrown from like the opposite 40. Sure. And he caught it at the 5, and there it just happened to be that there was 3 defenders there. The second he caught it, they just brought him down, and that was the end of the game. Georgia Southern tried their absolute hardest to lose this game, and it's good that they won. It's good that they picked up a win against another G5 opponent. But man, the first quarter was ugly. They went back to the not really interested in stopping the run. And then the defense came to play, starting in the second quarter, like I said, they get a touchdown pass from J.C. French in the first quarter. Gavin Stewart, the Georgia Tech transfer, bangs home a field goal in the second quarter. And then they get the ball late right before halftime, go down 8 plays, 80 yards in a minute 48. J.C. French hits Dalen Cobb for a 24-yard touchdown with 3 seconds left in the half. And, the two teams traded field goals in the second half because those were the only scores. Nobody scored in the fourth quarter. It was a good win from them. I still don't really know what to take away from this Georgia Southern team. Sometimes they play like they care, and sometimes they play like they couldn't care less. So as long as that kind of ebb and flow keeps happening, I don't really know what to expect on a weekly basis.
What did you make of J.C. French?
I've been impressed with him so far this season. He put up 45 points last week against Boise. He was, or 2 weeks ago against Boise. He was not the reason they lost that game. And that's plain and evident and all that. It's tough to win a game. I told this, I know you listen to the show, but I told this to Matt. Anytime you score 45 points and you lose by double digits, you're not the reason they lost. So people were especially on our Georgia Southern fan website, were really bagging on him when he won the starting job and was like, this is another sign that Helton doesn't know what he's doing. And I kind of was like, hey, I think this guy showed some real promise in the little bits he played over Davis Brin last year. And he's kind of building on that. And I like what I've seen from him. He doesn't turn the football over, which is absolutely first and foremost for them. So I've been very impressed with him so far this season. Now, if the defense had a pulse, they would probably be in contention with App for the East. But the defense just flips a coin and decides whether to care that quarter or not. I don't really understand how that works. But yeah, good win, all things considered. Georgia Southern improves to 1-1 this season. Nevada drops to 1-2. Getting into this next one here, Arkansas State edges out Tulsa behind a 21-point third quarter rally. Zeke's hate for the Red Wolves just is totally unmatched. Did Butch Jones key your car or something? Brian,
what's
going on?
You've got a young daughter, right?
Yeah.
She's a big Santa fan, Santa Claus, big fan.
Sure.
Now, which would be more embarrassing? An athletic director believing in Santa Claus or in Butch Jones?
Good.
This is not.
God,
This is definitely.
Zeke.
This
Zeke,
is definitely not
you
the
can't,
most.
You can't be serious.
I'm dead serious. What did they do well? They had one good drive. Their only good drive came on the game-winning drive. Everything else, poor drive. All of their touchdowns, again, save for the one at the end that gave them the lead, all of their scoring drives under 5 plays.
That sounds like efficiency to me.
No, that's unsustainable, and you know that. That is so far and beyond. No good, reliable football team that's going to win games is going to do that. You did that against Tulsa. Congrats. You scored a 35-yard touchdown against Tulsa. Congrats. You ran a touch. One of
Hold
them.
on.
And Texas State dropped 49 on UTSA. Congrats. Woo!
UTSA was projected to be in the CFP.
Hold on. I have a question. And I want to ask. I want Matt's input before you answer, Zeke.
Okay.
Matt, do you think any of this has anything to do with the fact that Arkansas State hung 77 on Texas State last year? Do you think this has any of that animosity plays into this? Because this is way beyond like even the animosity you had for like Southern Miss when you got into it like with their fans on Twitter. Mm-hmm. So like I think you won't admit it, but I think subconsciously that plays into it just a hair.
I'm going to disagree with you because, and this is on record, of course, my Butch Jones distaste predates that game.
Okay. When did it start? I mean,
I don't know. When did I join the podcast?
The underdog one?
I mean, yeah. I think as long as I've been in on the Sun Belt, which was 21, I think 21 or 22. Mm-hmm. It was Butch Jones's first year. Actually, I've been out on Butch Jones since he got the job.
And I'm not the biggest Butch Jones fan in the world, but I think it's I think you're a little over the top with it.
Point to me one thing in this game.
There it is. There's the issue right there. You've had a thing about Butch Jones since he got the job, meaning that you have never given the man a fair shake.
When has he earned a fair shake? When has he earned a fair shake?
Oh, I don't know.
When he lost to a MAC school in the bowl game? When he lost to a quarterbackless Marshall last season? When he beat UL Monroe by 10 last year? When did he earn a fair shake?
Listen, I'm kind of in the middle of y'all. I agree with Zeke on the points that before he found Jalen Rayner, Butch Jones was on his way to the firing line. Like he was the unemployment line, rather. Now, I will say this: I think it's a little bit of an overreaction, Zeke. Just to be frank, yeah. I mean, they are at the end of the day, they're 2-0. I mean, I know Central Arkansas, but whatever. If the Texas States of the world can slip up against an FCS school, then we need to grant everybody a little bit of grace.
Yeah, we can.
But they beat Tulsa. Again, like you can only play who's on your schedule. Like they schedule these games like 3 years out, so it's.
I understand.
It's like beating up on Matt's Saints for only beating the Panthers on Sunday. It's like, okay, but what were we supposed to do? Like,
right. But if not for a 77-yard punt return touchdown, this Tulsa wins this game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, those are the plays every Saturday that make the difference in those type of games.
Not if you're a team that is deserving of the hype that this team gets on a year-to-year.
What hype?
What hype?
I don't remember. I don't remember them getting any real hype.
We were just slobbering on them in the preseason.
No, we weren't. I was like, I think Jalen Rayner's very good, and if I basically said the same thing I said about Texas State about Arkansas State, but to a lesser extent. I said I like their offense. If the defense improves, I'll believe in them. Mm-hmm. That's all I said. I was never all over. I don't like Butch Jones as a coach. I don't believe in him. Like his track record, other than the 1 year at Cincinnati, has been smoke and mirrors and bad, quite frankly. But I don't believe overly in Butch Jones as a coach, but I think they have a good offense, and if the defense improves, then sure.
So
I was
wait,
very cautiously optimistic.
so now Brian has made a comment on Butch Jones. Let's look at the guy's resume. Okay? So his 3 years at Central Michigan, he has a record of 27-13, including 20-3 in the MAC. Goes to Cincinnati, has a bad first year, but then goes 10-3 and 9-3, finishing tied for first in the Big East in both of those years.
Playing with Brian Kelly's players. Yes, I agree.
Still got to find a way for them to get a win.
Sure. And then what? And then he goes to Tennessee, and then what happened?
Had back-to-back 9-4 seasons.
Okay. So has Mark Stoops has won 9 games at Kentucky. Like, are we crowning him? Like, no.
He still has a job.
Okay, and Butch Jones doesn't. So it didn't anymore.
But the point is that Zeke said that Butch Jones doesn't deserve a fair shake, and I just don't think that that's true.
I don't want to say he doesn't deserve a fair shake, but if he starts at 0, like let's say he's hired 2021, he starts at 0, he's not given me any reason to lift him above neutral. Only reason to dip him below neutral. So he did get a fair shake by starting at neutral. I mean, he was 2017 was the last time he was a head coach. I was 16. I wasn't watching Tennessee football at the time. I started with a very base level knowledge of Butch Jones.
I think for me is I've not really ever been impressed with him as a coach, and I think the first couple years of him at Arkansas State validate that at least a little bit. Like, you can't just hand wave away the first couple years of Arkansas State football under him and be like, but it's also like he inherited largely an Arkansas State team under Blake Anderson that was in contention for the Sun Belt West and the Sun Belt title every single year. So to take that and basically go back to like the beginning and start all over again and be like, we're going to win 3 games and we're going to win 5 games and we're not, and all of that. And we can't find a quarterback until, Jalen Rayner falls in my lap. Like, all of that plays into it. I don't think he's got the best track record as a coach, is all I'm saying.
And I agree with you. I think he's had some good seasons. I don't think his overall track record's, phenomenal. But my point here is he takes over a program. Yes, slow start. I would blame a lot of that on COVID, but I digress. He goes 2-10 and 3-9. And then last season jumps to 6-6. How can you not come into this season feeling like there's some positive momentum with what they've done?
I agree, but if the defense doesn't improve, and last week showed that it might not have, if the defense is if we're still in shootout mode with Jalen Rayner and it's like, I need him and Corey Rucker to put up 30 every week to even give us a chance to win, then yeah, that's my beef. That's all.
Matt, I'm going to ask you the opposite question of what Brian asked me. Is the reason you are, again, I'm going to say so high in quotes because I understand you're not putting them in the conference title, but higher than I am, and as I understand, higher than Brian, is it because this team beat Louisiana last year?
No, because Zion Chris broke his ankle in that game.
They're four of those 6 wins are Stony Brook, Southern Miss, UMass, UL Monroe. Those are an FCS school and 3 of the worst teams in all of college football. You want me to be impressed by that? I think the only really great win on this schedule is a 77-31 win over Texas State.
Mm-hmm. A team that you're obsessed with.
A team that I'm obsessed with this year with the best quarterback in the conference that they didn't have last year.
But couldn't you argue?
We got to move off of this. We have
Move on.
to. We're gonna be 4 hours into a podcast just arguing about Butch Jones. All right. They beat Tulsa. Great job, everybody. Arkansas State's 2-0. Tulsa's 1-1. Jesus. All
There
right.
you are.
Next
They're going to the
game here.
playoff, damn it.
Next game here. Hey, UL Monroe takes Trent Dilfer's UAB Blazers to the absolute woodshed. No, dude. No. Yeah, I'm not gonna let you yawn, because considering where this team was a year ago, you can't be like, no, not impressive. Especially because, hold on, you were doubting me for picking ULM going into last week. I picked ULM plus 13, and you were like, I don't know about that. Dude, they won by 26.
Cool. Played really well. I'll watch the game. They played really well. ULM also started 2-0 last year and proceeded to lose their final 10.
But it's a brand new team with a new quarterback and, new coach. Like, they have a new philosophy. Like, I'm not again. You guys jump to, oh man, you must say they're a Sun Belt title contender. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, this is already an improvement over what they had.
I know you're not saying that, but for me to believe that they could be even better than they were last year, I have to see that third win.
Okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Impressive performance. They played really well. I got to see more.
I think the momentum for them is heading in the right direction. I don't think
I can agree with that.
I don't think they're going to win I don't think they're going to be in a bowl game. I don't think they're going to win a bowl game, but I think they played an FCS school week 1, whatever. You can't really take anything away from that. This at least is I told you last week, I was like, I'm not a fan of Trent Dilfer as a coach at UAB. I think he's in over his head. He was a high school coach that I think they mistakenly gave him the job over Bryant Vincent, who probably should have rightfully been the UAB coach after Bill Clark left. And I mean, take a look at the result from Saturday. They kind of went out and proved that. But yeah, I don't like any of UAB's play. I don't like Jacob Zeno. Georgia Southern played them last year and absolutely smoked them the same way that UL Monroe did. So all I'm saying is the momentum is headed in the right direction. They have something to build off of now, whereas it seemed like under Bowden, the wins were just totally random. Like, you would have, they took App down to the absolute wire last year and then inexplicably ran an RPO out of an I formation on the goal line. Like, there was just things like that where you're like, how could you play well for 60 minutes and then just sabotage your team late like that? It doesn't make any sense. So I just think they're headed in the right direction.
No, I would agree with that. And again, it was a really impressive performance. The way that they've been able to run the football in their first 2 games has been really impressive. And we talked about that all preseason, about how that's what Brian Vincent wanted to do. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I think they are headed in the right direction. I don't know. So there's something in me that still sees them going maybe 4-8.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's their talent level. I'm not, again, like, yeah, if they won 4 games in year 1, like, that's pretty good for them. Like, I think everybody would be relatively pleased with that. They don't have the expectations that, like, some of these other teams do. They're at, like, the Southern Miss level of, hey, this is what we expect out of our football program.
Yep.
So just the fact that, they held UAB to 259 yards of offense. They turned them over 3 times. Zeno, the quarterback, again, what I want to see is, and I said this last week and we still haven't seen it, I want to see what it looks like when General Booty has to throw the football, because he hasn't had to yet this point in the season. So I want to see if you put the pressure on him and force him to throw the football, like, what does that look like? Because he came over from Oklahoma, so who knows? With that, UL Monroe is now 2-0 this season. UAB drops to 1-1. This last one we got to breeze through. Just sorry, Southern Miss fans, you guys beat a FCS school 35-10 at home. That's great. Tate Rodemaker threw 2 touchdowns, 180 yards. That truly deserves like a little like golf clap. I don't know how much you can extrapolate this over the rest of the season, but whatever. Southern Miss is now 1-1. Southeast Louisiana is now 0-2. All right. So let's go
week
ahead
3, baby.
Let's go ahead and get into week 3. Let's turn the animosity down just a hair. So when we're picking these games, can somebody call out what the first game is, because ESPN's site is moving very slowly.
It is
trying to switch.
The 2-0 Arizona State Sun Devils going into San Marcos to play a 2-0 Texas State team, 6:30 p.m. Central Time, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN. Arizona State is a 1.5 point favorite with an over-under of 59.5.
I'm taking Texas State. I've never really thought that highly of anybody at Arizona State. When have they haven't been good since Jake Plummer was the quarterback there. So
the Jaden Daniels disrespect.
They weren't good with him. They wasted his time. They wasted Brandon Ayuk's time. They were bad, dude.
The Jaden Daniels disrespect.
No, you want to know who disrespected Jaden Daniels was his teammates who threw all his stuff out of his locker in the garbage when he transferred to LSU. That's who the disrespected him.
That's fair.
All right, who do you guys have in this one? Zeke, we don't even need to go to you.
Yeah, I was about to say, we already know who you're taking.
Matt, who do you got?
I got Arizona State.
Okay. All right. So I've got it up here now. The other Thursday night game, South Alabama, hopefully Gio Lopez can come back from his turf toe. If not, I think at the very least we've seen Bishop Davenport has enough juice to overcome Northwestern State. If they don't beat Northwestern State, I mean we're in an all-time valley for South Alabama football. Okay. Saturday, Arkansas State travels to the Big House to take on Michigan. Michigan is a 23.5 point favorite. Over-under's 48.5. I'm taking Michigan on the exact same parameters that I took Clemson over App State last week. Mm-hmm. Michigan's coming off of a huge loss to Texas. They are going to be pissed off. Zeke, I don't necessarily agree with you one-on-one about Arkansas State, but they have shown the ability to struggle even when they play, again, an FCS school or Tulsa or whatever. Michigan, I think, is going to run them off the field. So I think Michigan minus 23.5 is my pick.
Yeah, I mean, same reasons. I take the over here, over 48.5. Michigan's, much like Clemson did, going to hang 48 on them on their own, and you just need a field goal from Arkansas State. Say what I will about Arkansas State. They can score points in bunches, especially once, Michigan's going to get lax late. So you give me the over easily.
Yeah, I'm going to go over too. I don't know. I'm stuck in the middle on the spread because I feel like this is a game where Arkansas State could play up and keep it interesting. But then at the same time, I agree with both of you that Michigan could just also run away with this. So I'll take the over.
Okay. 2:00 on ESPN Plus. We've got Coastal Carolina traveling to the Eagles Stadium, Lincoln Financial Field in Pennsylvania, Philly, to take on Temple. Coastal is an 18.5 point road favorite. Over/under is 51.5. I'm taking the over here. I don't know. I don't imagine Temple is a good team, but 18.5 is a lot. And I have seen that what happens when you bet Coastal unders. in week 1 when they scored 55 and basically covered the over-under themselves. So I'm going to take the over because I think they're going to absolutely smash Temple.
I like Temple 17 plus 7, or I have it in my notes at 17. It's 18.5 now. I'll still take them on that. I think Coastal wins this by 14 or so. It depends on what Ethan Vasco we get. The running game from Coastal has been pretty solid the past couple weeks, which makes me think, obviously running the ball just makes the game go by quicker, less points get scored. Give me Temple to cover.
This might sound like a cop-out answer, but can I just take Coastal on the money line?
Yeah.
Can I just take him straight up?
I mean, you could.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's a cop-out, and I apologize. But just give me Coastal to win.
Okay. 4:00 here on Fox Sports 1. Troy is traveling to Kinnick to take on Iowa, who is quietly balling as a football team, a lot better than they have been, especially offensively. Iowa's a 22-point home favorite. Over-under is only 38.5, which would imply that Troy scores 14 points, somewhere around there? 20?
Yeah.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm taking Iowa. Troy, there's a lot of reasons for concern with Troy. Yeah. And Iowa, I think, Iowa has a chance to shut them out based on what I saw against Memphis.
Turns out the awkward Thanksgiving dinners might actually be worth it for Iowa. Give me the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, I mean, Troy nearly did not cover this spread against Memphis. Give me Iowa.
All right, next one here, 4:00 ESPNU. App State is traveling to Greenville to take on an East Carolina school fresh off of an Old Dominion win. App is a 2.5-point road favorite. Over-under is 60.5. Give me App. I'm windmilling this one in.
Yeah, easy.
All right, another one here, a familiar matchup. Two teams that both played, one Sun Belt opponent and one that played a Sun Belt team. Virginia Tech is weirdly going to Norfolk for a home and home to play Old Dominion. Virginia Tech is a 14-point favorite. Over-under is 49.5. I'm going to take Old Dominion. I don't think they win the game, but they have shown the ability to keep them close against South Carolina and East Carolina, relatively. So I'm going to take Old Dominion. I think Virginia Tech wins by like 10.
I agree. Also, because not to mention the two games you just mentioned, but also the previous times that Old Dominion has played Virginia Tech, it's been close matchups. So yeah, ODU to cover.
Good points, but this game is going to go very similarly to how the Virginia Tech Marshall game went. Old Dominion, much like Marshall, is just offensively depleted. Virginia Tech minus 14.
Georgia Southern's taking on South Carolina State at home at 6:00 on ESPN Plus. There's no line on this game. It's, it is what it is. This next one here, 7:00 Eastern time on ESPN Plus. Georgia State somehow tricked Vanderbilt into coming to Center Park, where there will be dozens of fans. Vanderbilt is a 10.5-point road favorite. Over-under is 46.5. I like what I've seen out of Vanderbilt so far this year. I'm taking Vanderbilt minus 10.5. I think this one's easy.
Yep.
They don't stand a chance, unfortunately. Georgia State just simply cannot compete.
I think Vanderbilt's fans, considering what do you drive from Nashville to Atlanta? That's like 7 hours with traffic. Like, yeah, you could do that.
Yeah. Christian View.
Bro, I read it off the team. I read it off the team site.
Bro, I'm not trusting Atlanta, Georgia French. I'm just not.
Matt's starting to question Christian's roots. Where in Louisiana are you from again?
No, he's from Ontario.
Oh, it's Canadian French.
Yes, it's French.
It's Canadian French.
That explains it.
Yeah,
that explains it.
It's the incorrect French.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, give me Vandy by 14.
I had a friend in college who was French, and one time I asked him about French Canadians, and he was like, disgusting.
Yeah,
Disgusting
that's
people.
that's the fake French.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a guy from Louisiana.
Hey, we came from France, baby.
That is true. That is true. I mean, the state's named after King Louis. I mean, come on. Anyway, 7 p.m. last game on the docket here. ESPN Plus. Southern Miss is taking on South Florida in Hattiesburg. South Florida is a 12-point favorite on the road. Over-under's 57.5. I'm taking the under of 57.5. I don't know anything about South Florida, so I'm sure Southern Miss is going to find a way to lose this game, but I don't think, even if South Florida blows them out, I don't think Southern Miss is going to score enough points to even come close to touching the over of 57.5.
It's all gross. I'll take the under.
Yeah, this is a South Florida team that last week was 14-13 against Alabama in the third quarter. Give me the under.
All right, so that does it for week 3 in our picks. Zeke, I don't have the spreadsheet pulled up, but you've been on fire the last 2 weeks with your picks. Just wanted to give you some credit there. Yeah, so Zeke, with that, tell folks where they can find you and your extremely hot hand on picking Sunbelt games on X.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Zeke Palermo, ZekePalermo. I'm not going to recommend you follow my betting advice. My track record, despite the hot hand, doesn't track. I'm going to suggest we have a YouTube. Check it out. Next week or next episode, we're going to have to switch up the format. Brian is going to have to go on top and kind of split Matt and I down the middle, because I've realized he is kind of the Kevin Wildes of our show. While Matt and I spit hot takes back at each other, Brian is there as a more neutral ground.
Yeah, Brian's the Chris Wallace of the Donald Trump Kamala Harris conversation. I don't know why I brought the presidential debate into this, but anyways, you can follow me on X at Miguez Matt. Cajuns are off this week. I'm getting hit by a hurricane, so content might be at a minimum over the next 24 to 48 hours. But we press on. There's a really great in-state game happening next Saturday. The Cajuns and Tulane. It is on national television.
That'll be a good one.
11 o'clock kick on ESPNU from Cajun Field, so that should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. As Zeke said, you can always find our content from here on YouTube. Just search Warm Weather Fans will pop up, at Warm Weather Fans on X. Email questions, comments, whatever to the show at warmweatherfans to warmweatherfans@gmail.com. You can find me on X at Watch the Stone. We will be back next week to run down week 3, talk about week 4, and hopefully Zeke and Matt don't kill each other on the air. This has been another episode of Warm Weather Fans.